Today we are honoring the life of Jefferson Parish Deputy Christopher Ohlmeyer, who was killed in a motorcycle crash last week. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Katie Moore.
And I'm Cherise Gibson. Family members, fellow officers, and members of the community have been paying their respects to Deputy Ohlmeyer today at the Jefferson Performing Arts Center.
Yeah, it's where a visitation and the funeral service were held, and now a procession is getting underway to the gravesite. Now, the funeral procession route goes down Airline Drive to the west to Roosevelt Boulevard, and then it takes West Metairie Avenue to David Drive before taking Airline to the Garden of Memory Cemetery.
Well, the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office has asked people to wear blue if they're watching the procession, and businesses on the route have been asked to decorate in blue in honor of Deputy Ohlmeyer. You can see a large fire truck right there flying an American flag in this live picture from the procession route. It will pass by the Comeback Inn on Metairie Road. That is where Deputy Ohlmeyer's wife and sister work.
Yeah, those ladders are usually up in situations like this. It's a very poignant and meaningful moment as trucks and fire engines and police cars pass underneath them in funerals like this one. It will be a very touching sight, and Meg Ferris has been at the staging area near the Jefferson Performing Arts Center. She's joining us live with more on that part of this. Meg?
Well, ladies, from 10 to 1, we just saw hundreds upon hundreds of law enforcement officials. We saw people coming from the hospital in their scrub suits. We saw people from all different law enforcement agencies from different states and from locally and from the state go in to pay their respects. And then from 1 to 2, there was a ceremony, and the family strictly asked that no media be allowed, no videotaping or anything on the inside, which of course we all respected. Now, as you can see, there are people, many people coming out. You can see the law enforcement presence that was here paying their respects. You can also see the motorcycles. They call it a brotherhood within the brotherhood, where other officers who ride motorcycles, they say it's a special group, and there were dozens and dozens of them lined up in a couple of places here in Metairie at the Jefferson Performing Arts Center. As you said, they'll have a procession. We're just waiting for the casket to come out. The ceremony just let out a few minutes ago, and we've seen many Jefferson Parish officials. We've talked to officials from and firefighters from Slidell and Kenner and different places around here. And of course, the flag, the U.S. flag of honor came. That's been going around the country to many, many locations to honor fallen heroes. And that was started during 9/11. And that was presented here and came to this funeral as well. A lot of people said they just didn't want to talk right now. It's been very solemn. As you can see, you see school children coming out in their uniforms, and that was one of the really sad things we saw here, were a lot of young people who looked about the adolescent age of the officers' 2 children, which just reminds you that it's a father who's left behind 2 children and a wife. We've seen some women coming out wiping tears from their eyes, and we've heard there were just many beautiful speakers here, as you can imagine. I talked to a man who worked with Officer Ohlmeyer at the funeral home, riding in the procession with the funeral home, who said he was a very humble man. He was a family man. A couple of officers walked by who just said family man. That summed up Deputy Christopher Ohlmeyer. They said he was a very calm person and funny. He could be very funny too as well. But they always said when they knew he was leading a procession for a funeral that everything was going to fall into place and be calm. What's really interesting as well, Katie and Cherise, is one of the people who came to the funeral was the father of the young woman who died and whose funeral procession Christopher Ohlmeyer was leading that day. He came and he said, "This is a tragic day." And he was in his truck in that procession, and saw the whole situation happen, saw the tragic accident happen, and he came to pay his respects. It looks like right now you can see coming out of the Jefferson Performing Arts Center, you see they've formed a line, law enforcement has formed a line, and we assume waiting to bring the casket out to load it so it can go on its way down to the Garden of Memories. So it's been a beautiful morning with, of course, the flags at half-staff, of course, the flag, the big flag that formed on the fire truck, and that's to form an archway, an entrance into the ceremony, and that's done, as you know, traditionally at all first responders' funerals. So that's what we have here that's been going on this morning. We've spoken to the sheriff, Joseph Lapinto, who has, told us his thoughts and feelings, and the department's thoughts and feelings at this time, as you can imagine, is just very sad. Officer Ohlmeyer, Deputy Ohlmeyer, was with the JP Sheriff's Office for 14 years, but he served 16 years in law enforcement, was only 41 years old. And I'll tell you, I was out this weekend, and people would stop me and just say how sad they were, just people out doing their errands. And one of them pulled up a picture of him on Facebook that was taken at Christmas time with his wife, with his 2 children, and their 3 dogs. And she knew the family, and she said, look, they had just adopted their 3rd dog. Look how happy they were, this family of mom, dad, 2 children, and their 3 dogs. So just seemed very beloved by so many people in the community. Ladies, back to you.
Thank you so much, Meg. NOLA.com, our partners reported that he was a dance dad. Charisse, that means a lot to me as a dance mom, and special kind of dedication to your family and your children that is associated with that. And I know so many people in Jefferson Parish are mourning this loss today, a very difficult day, especially for the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office.
Yes, certainly. And you can see the number of people out there was waiting for the procession to start. They were lining up outside of the Jefferson Parish Performing Arts Center. And, when any time something like this happens, when you experience any sort of loss, it's really difficult to process, especially when a person is lost doing their job, and a job they've done so long, and a job that they do love.
Yeah, listening to Meg talk about the fact that the person who was at the funeral that he was leading the procession for when he was killed on Airline Highway last week is at the funeral, just people coming up to her left and right saying how sad they are and how much this man who, again, was just 41 years old is going to be missed, and how much his children and his wife and his entire family there in Metairie are just at a loss today. Very difficult day. All right, the whole procession is expected to loop through Metairie and Kenner, but we do have people along the way who are going to document that for us as we continue to bring you this.
As we mentioned, that is where Deputy Ohlmeyer's sister and wife work. And Lily Cummings joining us now live there for the latest. Lily, we see the flag flying behind you and the ladders raised high.
Yeah, Katie and Charisse, we're on West Metairie, just feet away from Come Back In. It's a restaurant here on West Metairie where Deputy Ohlmeyer's wife and sister both worked. That was our first stop this morning. We wanted to check in on the staff there, see how they're doing, and they shared a little bit with us about the family, saying that this was just such a tragedy. They were such a loved family in this community, that they had worked with the wife and sister for many years. So as you can imagine, that restaurant is now serving kind of as a hub, essentially, for this procession. They have a lot of decorations that they put out in front of the restaurant, balloons, flags, everything of that nature. And then we saw throughout this entire route that the procession will take from the service to the funeral home, to the burial site rather. They've lined that whole route with just flags, with balloons. We've seen ribbons tied around, posts around the whole route on West Metairie. And we did speak with some family members, some friends of the family who were out decorating and putting up signs and things of that nature today as well. We also stopped by the grammar school that Deputy Ohlmeyer did attend, not far from where we're standing here on West Metairie, they also lined the fence with blue balloons as well. So you can definitely feel that show of support, that sense of support out here in Metairie this afternoon. And we did speak, as I said again, with employees of the restaurant. We want to listen into what they had to say about the family.
He was an amazing cop, father, brother, son. I mean, overall, just a great person. I've known this family for 10 years, and they're just nothing but a loving, caring family.
And those thoughts and feelings were echoed with us throughout this whole route, again, as we stopped and spoke to people who were putting up decorations and things of that nature. I actually want to see if we can kind of spin around and show just the crowds that are out here. And show exactly how many people. They have their signs. They told us that the employees are, like I said again, the restaurant kind of serving as a hub for folks who wanted to come out and show their support. You can see a lot of people have gathered just waiting on this procession to get here. I see a little one with a sign there. So the employees also told me that, you know, this restaurant kind of serves for this community, this neighborhood, as a place that would open after a hurricane, after a storm, and feed the community. And so Desiree, Deputy Ohlmeyer's wife, who worked here, was definitely a big part of that, a big force behind all of that. And so that's why this family, not only because of his service with JPSO as a deputy, but because they were just such a known couple and family in this community that was always serving in just various ways, whether it's a hot meal after a storm or it's on the front lines as a deputy with JPSO. This family is known and loved in this community, and you can feel that out here as folks wait on the family to pass by. And that's really the feeling that we got talking with people today, is just, look, we wanted to come out. You saw people kind of walking out of their homes in the neighborhood and then also parking and gathering in front of the restaurant. They wanted to come out and show their sign of support. Not only are you seeing that from members of the community, but as Meg was talking about earlier, members of law enforcement as well. We've seen state police out here helping kind of manage this procession, blocking off roads so that it can safely pass us by once they get here. And then also, as you all mentioned, we have the 3rd District Volunteer Fire Department out of River Ridge that is here kind of forming that archway, as you all said, with the American flag that they will soon pass under once they get to where we're standing here on West Metairie. But for now, I'll send it back to you all in studio, Charisse and Katie.
You know, it is quite poignant, Lily, that they are blocking off roads, which is exactly what happened to Deputy Ohlmeyer when he was killed last week. So certainly not lost in this whole situation as we continue to cover this, as we get ready for that procession to make its way through Kenner and Metairie and in all parts of Jefferson Parish.
Yeah, speaking of that procession, we just saw live from Meg Ferris the number of people, and we tend to unfortunately see this where if a law enforcement officer is lost, you have people from all sorts of law enforcement agencies across the state that come out to honor these officers, because we've seen this very often. Most of those officers who lead those funeral processions, sometimes you're getting on the interstate, sometimes you're in a high traffic area. Yep. So they are needed, and they are important to make sure that no one else gets hurt. And unfortunately, we have a situation where we lost Officer Deputy Ohlmeyer in his attempt to stop people to help people honor their lost loved one.
You know, I think most people, when they think of the sacrifices that law enforcement officers can typically make, they don't normally think of, you know, having a traffic accident as being one of those risky situations, but it absolutely is. And unfortunately, this is exactly the worst case scenario that can happen for any of our law enforcement agents out there who are there showing up for work every day, serving the community, trying to help a family that was in mourning, and now his family is in mourning. Yeah. So a very difficult time for the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office and for many parts of the community. As Lily just demonstrated, this family was very well liked, and he certainly is already missed.
You never know how much your impact is felt across a community until, unfortunately, something like this happens. And so this is why I always say to people, make sure people know how important they are to you. Make sure you share your feelings about them, because you don't want to have to go through loss to share how much you love someone. But you're getting a live look at right now at the Jefferson Parish Arts Center. That is where they held the funeral for Deputy Ohlmeyer. And you see people standing outside right now waiting for the beginning of that procession. Meg Ferris has been live out there for us. She was inside of the funeral. Meg, it looks like everyone is standing outside, I believe, waiting for the procession to begin.
Yes, they are, Charisse. You know, Katie said they show up for work every day, and in many cases they show up for extra work frequently. I mean, he was doing a detail. He was trying to earn extra money. As we know, you know, it can be difficult to support a family sometimes on, you know, one salary, one law enforcement salary. His wife was working. He was doing these extra details for funeral processions to make extra money, to make ends meet. And as you discussed, you know, that was on airline, and that's where the crash happened. And we talked to one of his fellow employees who works at the funeral home, and he had this to say about him.
Very humble, very good guy. He would make us laugh every now and then because he would say, whoever has the better route, that's who we going with. So we would appreciate when I would see him, he'll say, who driving today, you or him? I would say, I'm driving. He would say, okay, good. Because, you know, we work together as a team in the funeral home business and his escorting.
One officer who didn't want to go on camera said, to summarize him in a word, family man.
Family man, 100% family man.
Yes, and we were talking about, you know, earlier how law enforcement, they turn out for each other. I've been covering too many of these funerals, and what was just so impressive, I remember one on the North Shore of an officer who lost his life, and there were law enforcement who came all the way from Alaska. And it's just so impressive, that brotherhood. Now you can hear the bagpipes playing right now. I don't know if you can hear that where you are, but it looks like they are escorting the casket out. It looks like we can see through the glass of the Jefferson Parish Performing Arts Center. Bagpipes coming with the casket, and which would be close friends and family walking behind. And you can see all of the officers who are outside standing at attention. You can also see young girls in their school uniforms. I'm sure they must be friends of his two young children. Let's just watch for a little while as they come out. It's very silent out here as the casket comes out. It sounded like someone just called everyone to salute, call to attention. Behind me are dozens of JPSO police cruisers getting ready to fall in line in the procession as soon as it begins. People were told to wear blue. Many people did wear blue under these gorgeous blue skies today, but very, very windy and very cold outside for everyone.
We see people exiting the Jefferson Performing Arts Center there, Meg. It appeared as though some family members were standing by as they loaded that casket into the hearse, which of course will be part of the funeral procession that will lead to the cemetery where Deputy Ohlmeyer is set to be laid to rest. Now, this is a difficult day for so many people over in Jefferson Parish. Lots of dignitaries, as Meg had mentioned earlier, there to pay their respects, to basically give support to the family of Deputy Ohlmeyer in this just horrible day in their lives.
You know, you may be wondering why we're at such a distance. We really wanted to give this family the respect and the privacy that they asked for in covering this. We know that there are so many people who are watching this on streaming who did want to attend these services. But again, the family asked that we keep all of the ceremonies private. But of course, they do invite everyone to just truly honor Deputy Ohlmeyer. And right now, you see everyone going to their vehicles. We saw Lily, she's along the procession route where people will be standing by on the streets in front of the restaurant, of the place rather, excuse me, where is it a restaurant?
It's a restaurant, yes, where his widow worked. Yes,
yeah, his widow and his sister worked. And so obviously based on the people, everyone, what they said out there, so far we've heard nothing but positive comments, a family man, someone who is truly going to be missed. And we also had someone who spoke with us who worked right alongside him, and they said that he was truly one of a kind and someone that is terribly going to be missed, and it reminds you of the dangers of this job.
Yeah, absolutely. They go to work every day and their families never know if they are going to come home. And again, the family has asked to keep those ceremonies private, but they have invited the public to greet the procession as it's making its way to the gravesite right about now.
Yeah, here's the procession route. It goes west down Airline Drive to Roosevelt Boulevard, then West Metairie Avenue to David Drive before taking Airline Drive to Garden of Memory Cemetery.
Yeah, and we'll have much more on the funeral coming up on our next newscast at 4 o'clock on WWL and here, of course, on WWL Plus. Thanks so much for joining us.